Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Wantrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofrumento, and in almost 1,000 episodes, we have never talked about what I think is one of the most generous marketing and resource opportunities out there concerning nonprofits and impact and moving the world forward in positive ways. And so today we are bringing on an incredible guest to talk about the Google Ad Grant program. And most importantly, not even just regarding digital ads, but the way that today's entrepreneur views impact and marketing and being of service and reaching more people and doing all of it, unlimited resources. I think we're all in for a real treat in today's episode. So let me tell you about today's guest. His name is Todd Vigil. Todd is a results-driven nonprofit marketing leader known for his innovative data-driven strategies. He founded Ely Hub to help nonprofits utilize Google's ad grant program, which we're going to talk about a lot. This is a $10,000 a month marketing budget accessible to nonprofits. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm not a nonprofit, how does this factor into what I'm doing and what I'm building? Well, I think that you're going to learn a lot from Todd's strategic mind, the way that he makes things simple. Really, this is someone who thinks about marketing and impact in really unique and powerful ways. As Chief Marketing Officer for the Phoenix Symphony, he drove significant transformation through digital marketing. With over a decade of experience, Todd has led marketing for institutions like the Heard Museum. He also chairs the Marketing Council at ASU's Lodestar Center. He's a native of Arizona. Todd enjoys hiking, reading, podcasts, and international travel. I'm very excited for all of us to learn from him today, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Todd Vigil. All right, Todd, I'm so excited to have you here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Heck yes. I think that the work that you do, not only is it incredible and it's important, but I think that it's so insightful, the way that you view the world through the lens of marketing and what's possible. But before we get to that stuff, take us beyond the bio. Who's Todd? How'd you start doing all these amazing things?
Oh, great question. I Arizona native, grew up here. I've tried to leave a couple of times, but I've always just stayed with great companies and opportunities here in Phoenix. I started my career at U.S. Airways as a really fun job running their company store and their uniform programs. Learned a lot. It's been about 5 years there, and before I stumbled into nonprofit. Thanks to a really good friend who helped me get my foot in the door, and just some other connections in the nonprofit space. I got the amazing job as the director of marketing at the Phoenix Symphony. I spent 7 years there, and have just been kind of inserting myself into a variety of aspects of the nonprofit space. And throughout that whole time, I felt there was this niche around small nonprofits and the Google Ad Grant. And we launched in 2021, but this is my first year doing it full time. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I
love talking about this program.
Yeah, and me as well, because I think that it is such an untapped resource for nonprofits. And we're going to talk about the Google Ad Grant today. We're going to talk about nonprofits and your feelings around that. But first things first, you are the one who's introducing our worldwide audience to the Google Ad Grants program. So let's start there. What is it, Todd? Give us the intricacies of it.
Yeah, Google has had this really generous program. Google for Nonprofits is the larger program, but one of the sub-programs in that is the Google Ad Grant. It's been around since at least 2001 and offers most 501c3 nonprofits up to $10,000 a month in free advertising. The challenge is, don't feel bad if you've never heard of the program. I would say 50% of the people I talk to in the nonprofit space don't even know it exists. And the other 50% know it exists, but it's a little challenging. It's an ad tech platform that it takes some nuance and understanding. So they just don't have the time, the talent, or the skill set in their organizations. And a lot of them just don't have the budgets for a full service marketing agency. And I'm a big fan of great marketing agencies. They can't afford it. They can't afford the retainers of a marketing agency or a consistent consultant. So I created a product that I call the Netflix of Google Grant Management. We're going to do 80% of what they need, but if they really want to watch House of Dragons, they're going to have to find HBO. But we focus on efficiency, and our model across our over 50 clients now really works. And it's a really simplified model at just a fraction of the cost. So it's a really powerful program. Every nonprofit should be using it. And if they can afford to help, they should hire someone, if not me, someone like me who knows the grant and can help them do it right.
Yeah, I love that perspective, especially because there's so few times in the world of business that we can say everyone should be doing this, but you and I can very confidently say on the air today, every single nonprofit should be taking advantage of this. And Todd, I'm going to extrapolate here really early on in today's episode, because a lot of listeners tuning in might be thinking, well, I don't have a nonprofit, so this doesn't really apply to me. But I think there's so much power in thinking like a nonprofit, because nonprofits have to be very disciplined about how they use their resources. And so even beyond just talking about Google Ads, for example, I want to tap into your mind with regards to the nonprofit business model. Actually, I want to correct myself there, because the CEO of a nonprofit that I've worked with historically once told me that nonprofit is not a business model, it is a tax approach. And so there's so much that we can learn from that world. Give us your perspective on nonprofits. You've been involved with real life ones like the Phoenix Symphony that brings so much joy and happiness and impact to the world. So there's huge opportunities there. What does the nonprofit world mean to you?
Oh, yeah. There's over 1.5 million nonprofits in the United States. And, it's one of the true pleasures of starting this journey is so many of those nonprofits are just doing unique things that you would never think about. We cover everything from suicide prevention to the arts to, a sports podcast in Texas and, food shelters, dog shelters, a lot of youth and community serving organizations. So it's really great to see these impact in this, where, private enterprise and government leave these gaps in the world, where it doesn't necessarily make sense from a financial standpoint to operate in this space. Nonprofits fill that void, and they do that by typically two reasons. Some nonprofits have two main revenue streams. One is called earned revenue. So, for example, at the Phoenix Symphony, we sold a lot of tickets. It was over 50% of our income. And that's sustainable to a degree, but orchestras are expensive. And so in order to make that model work, and this is for just about every orchestra in the country and the world, it takes subsidies. And some organizations outside the U.S. get a lot of government funding. But here in the U.S., it relies on private philanthropy. So those nonprofits, for contributed revenue, which is the donation side, really have to go and cultivate and understand their audience, even if it's something as mass market as, let's say, a symphony, where we're selling tickets to everything from Beethoven to ABBA. You have to cultivate. You have to get to know your audience on a one-on-one level, because that's where your potential donors are, and that's what keeps the model alive. So it's a really interesting concept. Sometimes I joke the nonprofit space is, kind of like a perpetual startup. They're always in this kind of scrappy mode. A bunch of young, eager, super talented, passionate folks come into an organization to do a lot of work. And, it can be rewarding personally, but sometimes it's financially a strain, because nonprofits can struggle with cash flow and donations. And, they are at the whim of donors. And that whole landscape is changing now too. Donor behavior, especially since COVID, has really changed. We're seeing a lot fewer donations from fewer households donating. We're seeing larger, big gifts, the things like Mackenzie Scott's of the world and Warren Buffett's challenge. But the smaller individual donors have been on a decline since COVID. So we're hoping that turns around.
Yeah, and Todd, having you here is really fun to talk about these things, because you are a marketer at heart. And so marketing, the very essence of it, talks about using your resources to gain even more resources. And it's obviously incredibly important in the landscape that you operate in. I'm curious to hear about your perspective on marketing within the nonprofit world, because it seems to me from the outside like you have all of the same obligations that we do of generating ROI, of having really strategic and intentional campaigns and calls to action and copy. Talk to us about that landscape of marketing within the nonprofit world.
Yeah, I think not only just in marketing, but not only in nonprofit, but I think in general, people default the term marketing to promotion, and in particular things like social media or TV or ad buys and things like that, which is certainly a part of it. But I always tell people when I speak or when I teach that there are 4 P's of marketing. It's many of you probably know, but product, price, place, and promotion. And I think in the nonprofit world and the small business world, we forget about that. It is it is all four of those things, and they all have to be addressed kind of constantly. Promotion, things like social media, advertising, PR, those are the sexy parts of marketing. So we like to do them. Oftentimes they're trackable with KPIs and results. But you really have to pay attention. If your product's really good, all the marketing in the world isn't going to save it. If your product's amazing, you may not need as much marketing. So, and obviously things like price, for-profit businesses look at this all the time. Nonprofits don't necessarily always do that. And then place, same thing. Are you in the right place, both digitally and physically, if you have a physical footprint? So I think that's one of the biggest things in the nonprofit sector is we spend too much time thinking about the sexy stuff that or maybe even vanity, for the lack of a better term, where we just want to see our names in the newspaper or on the side of a bus. But I would often challenge those are not very effective uses of marketing for most nonprofits. I'd say that for probably a lot of for-profits too, but
Yeah, I'm going to use that to segue, because when you talk about place and being in the right place, and I love that you just so clearly call out the sexy places, and I'm with you there that I love throwing shade at launching Facebook ads and all these video ad campaigns. It's not the right solution for a lot of businesses, but those are the ads that we see the most. So we tend to default to that when we have broad marketing based conversations. So Todd, I want to bring it back to basics. Google Ads, it's one of the longest standing self-serve ad platforms in the world. It still to this day remains one of the most efficient and productive and profitable. So I would also argue that a lot of our listeners and most entrepreneurs still have never tapped into that as an ad platform. So what is the Google ad platform? We've all seen it as consumers when we Google things, but what are the powers? What are some of those unique gifts that the Google ad platform presents to us as business owners?
Well, I'll start broad. The Google ad platforms have a lot of tools in their pocket. They've got a whole display advertising. They've got affiliate display advertising, or the retargeting ads that follow you around on the internet. They have YouTube, really powerful. It's the second largest search engine in the world, only behind Google. So they know this market well, and some other things. The Google Grant is specifically on paid search. So these are the ads that you get when you Google something, and you see those sponsored ads at the top. Google gives those away. Well, there's some parameters, but Google gives those away for free to nonprofits, and lets nonprofits compete in the auction that decides what that happens. And when managed properly, it can be very effective and competitive in a lot of spaces. I tell people Google, and in particular the Google Ad Grant, are excellent at top of funnel and increasing marketing awareness. At my company, we can't guarantee how much money you're going to get in free ads. We can't guarantee how many people are going to donate. But what I can guarantee is that Google, when done properly, will increase your quality website traffic. And I can't think of a nonprofit out there that doesn't want more of the right people on their website. And then, lastly, it's just about, how do you execute that? Do we get the right ads in place? Are they managed properly, so you're not wasting money on impressions or clicks that just aren't effective for you?
Yeah, Todd, now you're getting into some of the fun ad stuff that I'm excited to talk metrics with you. But before we get there, I do want to talk about the fact that doing something with that traffic, sending it to places that is useful to us, is obviously important from a business perspective. You so succinctly, I love how clear you separated earned revenue for nonprofits versus the donor side of things. Where are you sending that traffic? What are successful campaigns set up to do? You talk about brand awareness being one consideration set, and also you introduce us to the top of funnel. I feel like you have such a strategic mind that not every business owner might fully appreciate. Okay, here's the strategy, here's the intentionality that we're putting behind these things, and this is what we're looking for from each campaign. Give us some of those real life insights into different types of campaigns and where you send that traffic, and really beyond that, what you do with that traffic.
Yeah, great question. And for the broader audience who maybe is a small business owner or starting out, I think our model applies. And I'd love to say it's a secret sauce or some proprietary formula, but it's not. It's just a simple strategy. And we put it on our website, so I'll share it here. But we know this works. We do work with a number of kind of friends and family small businesses. My barber for being one, and we've worked with med spas. And even restaurants. So, smaller location-based businesses, this strategy does work and can be done affordably. So just to simply put, we deploy a 3-campaign strategy. One of those is a dynamic campaign for our clients, and that is a highly automated campaign format, relatively easy to set up on in the ad platform, Google Ads Manager, and it's highly automated. Google does a lot of the work for that. We just tend to oversee and maintain it. The second campaign we build for people is just a generic, we call it their commercial. It's a very generic ad, but specific about their organization, but it kind of covers the basics of what do they do, who they are, where are they. And then one of the hardest parts for nonprofits is, as part of our onboarding, we make them rank at least 3 website conversions. What are the things you want people to do when they get on your website? And it varies from nonprofit to nonprofit, but the common ones are things like newsletter downloads, blog reads, donation, obviously, volunteers, some of them because of the marketplace right now, careers. They just want more quality applicants. And so that third campaign is dedicated to their number one conversion. So a lot of times it's things like donations or learn more about us in there. And so that's kind of getting into the weeds of how we deploy our strategy. And it's a very simplified version. A full service agency is going to do a much more robust campaign structure. There's a lot of benefit to that, but we believe, and we have the results to prove it, that a simple strategy, well executed, is going to give you a really good value for what you're spending.
Yes, amen to that. Simplicity almost always wins. I love that that's so deeply ingrained in the way that you operate, Todd. Along those lines, a lot of people probably think that in the world of advertising, I know when I hear people talk about Facebook ads, they believe it's just set it and forget it. What's your attitude towards that? How much of it is set it and forget it versus some tweaks and optimizations along the way?
Yeah, great point. And everyone, it drives me nuts when people say they just want to boost a post. Thankfully, Facebook in particular has made it a little more effective when you do that. But to me, it is, Simon Sinek, you got to start with why. Why are you doing this ad? And then, in particular in the digital world, what do you want it to do? So we're very much focused on quality. We want it to be quality ads out there and reaching the right audience more often than best practice would be. And we focus on conversions. If you can't track some sort of meaningful conversion for your organization online, you're just throwing money. I always say you've got the sign spinner on the side of the corner, or you've got a Google ad. You can't take credit for all the cars that drive by that side spinner, which Google will do, as impressions. That's technically the impressions of an ad campaign. But with clicks, you actually know people, they engaged with your content, they likely visited your website, and then you can do the back-end analytics of Google Analytics to see, okay, is your time on site good? Are people engaging with the content? What content are they engaging with? So it really takes it to that next level of just painting the picture of, is this campaign working? But to me, it all goes back to conversions and, just following data. Are you doing a good job with things like click-through rate and cost per click, where you can gauge your success?
Yeah, Todd, hearing you talk about these things, it perfectly illustrates the point that you and I made early on in our conversation today, which is these are just the marketing fundamentals and the principles. We can't escape them, whether we're talking the for-profit world, the nonprofit world. And I think it's powerful insights for all of us, not only in the world where we're all looking for that winning strategy, but so much how you bring it back to that simplicity. So having a conversation with you about Google ad campaigns, for example, we can't ignore one of the most important parts of the campaign, which is, of course, keywords. Todd, I once upon a time owned an SEO agency, and when I talk to business owners, they would say, oh yeah, I already rank on Google. And then I say, for what keyword? And they say, my business name. And obviously ranking for your business name is one thing, but finding those strategic keywords that people are searching for to find you at the right time, in the right place is important. Introduce us to keyword strategy, and what are the things that you think about to identify those good keywords that will actually move businesses forward?
Yeah, so if you think of Google Ads as the keywords are the ingredients you feed to Google, and you're giving it parameters around things like headlines and descriptions, but you're giving it an idea of keywords, and those are just effectively groupings of words that are, when done properly, create ad groups which are similarly themed. So, for example, keywords around donation. donations near me, charitable donations, tax deductible donations, those kinds of things would be in one particular ad group. And those are the ingredients. They don't necessarily do anything other than give Google a guide to where to start. Google's going to recommend them once it gets going. Google's hopefully indexing your site and knows what people are looking at already. And but I do want to also delineate, there's keywords and there's search terms. And we always tell our nonprofits to, we have them focus on search terms from their end. We want them to see what people are actually typing in and how they're getting to the page. Because it's helpful. If you've got a search term in there that may or may not include a keyword, that's a great concept for, do you need to add an FAQ to an FAQs page? Do you need to write a blog about that particular topic? So there's a lot of powerful data that you get from this, and I tell all of my potential clients or current clients, Google is amazing at intent. It knows what you want, and it's really good at serving ads relevant, because that's how they've monetized more or less since day one. The last thing I'll say is, if you are in this space or delving down this space, AI is great for this. You can, if you have the paid version of ChatGPT, you can literally write a prompt that says something along the lines of, you are a senior marketing strategist for www.yourorganization.com. Recommend 50 keywords and organize them by ad groups, and it will spit out a list for you to look at and work on very quickly. So they're important, but you got to stay on top of them too.
Yeah, and speaking of staying on top of them, you have dropped so effortlessly a bunch of different KPIs throughout our conversation today, whether it's click-through rates or conversion rates. Talk to us about some of those analytics, because as someone who, my first ever business was a blog, which Google Analytics gave me all the things, session time, number of pages per visit, all of those metrics that I was looking at as a content-based business. But Todd, what are the actionable metrics that business owners should be paying attention to and taking action from when it comes to paid advertising?
Yeah, from a digital perspective, Facebook, Google, any of the digital, even things like connected TV now, the basics are still really good KPIs to follow. So for us, we tell our nonprofits to keep an eye on their click-through rate and their cost per click. And we tell them what our range is. We have a healthy range that we like to be in. And we tell them, when you get your monthly report, those are the two things you need to check to see if I'm doing my job and my team's doing their job. And if they're in that range, you should have confidence that we're getting the right people to your website. If they start to drop or go down, taking that one step further, and this is what we get paid for, and Google does help with automation if you're going to tackle this yourself, but Google will tell you individually, what are those keywords, what are those search terms that are doing really well and that are doing poorly. And again, there's a lot of automation built into the platform, so you can suspend things like low quality keywords. Especially if you're a paid account. If you're advertising your pizza restaurant, you don't want, let's say I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. I probably don't want to advertise my, pickup pizza restaurant in, let's just say, Tucson or even Scottsdale. I don't know if people are driving 15 miles to come pick up pizza. So looking at those to see where the quality is, you can turn them off and on, which is really helpful. Other than that, the last thing I'll say on that is in Google Analytics, if you're wondering what paid search is or how to track it, is in Google Analytics, Google Ads, paid or the grant, come through as paid search. So you can always tell what percentage of your website traffic is coming from your efforts. And that's a really powerful tool when we have clients who may be questioning, is it working? How are you helping? We can very quickly show them real results of what the ads are generating. Again, that's both for paid or for Google Grant.
Yeah, Todd, I'm excited to ask you this next question because I've never asked a Google Ads grant specialist like yourself this question, but I've heard it from the flip side from nonprofit owners where they tell me, this all sounds easy and amazing in theory of Google's going to give us $10,000 a month to spend in free advertising. And then when I say that's amazing, $120,000 a year goes a long way in making an impact for your business. But then Todd, inevitably, I always hear from them a few months later of, we can't figure out how to spend all of this money because it is so much. What's your take on that? Because I do hear so many users of this grant program who struggle to put campaigns together, and it's why they need people like you, and I'm so excited to introduce you to them moving forward. It's so great to have you here in the community. What's your answer as to why it's so hard for people to spend these funds?
Yeah, two things. Let me just manage expectations. The $10,000 is an up to, so not all nonprofits get the full benefit of what's on the table, but that's okay. We've taken over several clients who are getting hosed by a consultant or a firm who either doesn't know what they're doing, or maybe is taking a percentage and is misaligned in the results. We've had clients where they're getting the $10,000, but almost all their traffic is coming from outside of the United States. One in particular was just a Phoenix-based nonprofit, and they were getting almost all their traffic from out of Arizona, let alone Phoenix. So it's the $10,000 isn't our biggest priority. It is about quality. We would want to get you the right level of ads to your site. That said, based on geographic reach, most of our national clients get pretty close to the $10,000 every month. Statewide organizations typically get several $1,000s a month, and then smaller localized nonprofits typically see kind of a $1,000 to $3,000, but there's exceptions both ways. And then from there, again, it's really about quality, focusing on having ad quality in there, the right keywords, the right search terms. There are tips and tricks around the Google, making sure that you're using the right bid strategy. We find max conversion is typically the best default. But again, you have to have conversion set up with the Google Tag Manager on your website. We also see a lot of time and energy focused on those ad groups. Retheming ad groups. If you have a really good website with a lot of content and a lot of quality, it's a good speed, it's easy to use, and you have a lot of content, maybe a really robust, long-standing blog, a dynamic campaign is incredibly powerful. We have some clients who that's their largest campaign, and it's highly automated. You could probably figure out how to set that up with a couple of YouTube videos and, in there. So, I think those are the big things that you want to focus on is just quality. We want to get the right ads. I always tell a client, I would rather get you $2,000 of the right people than $5,000 of fluff traffic, because I could fake that all day long if I wanted to. And we really pride ourselves on focusing on quality. And I would encourage anyone who's doing any digital advertising, follow those metrics, focus on quality. What's working, do more of that. What's not, stop.
Yeah, really important takeaway, as you said, for all of us business owners. And I'm going to throw a little bit more shade piling on to what you said earlier about those vanity metrics. It's so tempting to chase the bigger numbers, but you're right. Those bigger numbers don't always trickle down to the parts of our business that absolutely matter. So when I think about advertising, Todd, I always think about how much of an iterative process it is. It's so hard to get a campaign right completely out of the gates. And that's why I was so glad to see in all of my research of you ahead of our session here today that you and I share a similar love for James Clear, a very brilliant business mind and a very brilliant writer. And I particularly love, and I see it's something that you also subscribe to, is the fact that his concept of marginal gains, it really guides us in everything we do, not only in business, certainly not only in advertising, but really in life. I'd love to hear your perspective on it because it hits us all differently. And you're one of us, you're a fellow entrepreneur, not just a specialist when it comes to Google Ads. Talk to us about how James Clear's marginal gains have factored into your mindset and the way that you approach all the things we face in business.
Oh, good. You could give me an opportunity to plug my new talk. But marginal gains, if for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's the first chapter of Atomic Habits. There's also a Harvard Business Review article on Sir Dave Brailsford, who was the British cycling coach. And he just, in a great case study, shows the power of marginal gains. We've experienced this in marketing and business the last, several times, and we don't think about it as much. Even Moneyball, the book and the movie, that was really about marginal gains, finding the simple wins. To highlight this, I'll go back to my career at the Phoenix Symphony. I was there 7 years, and started off very green. I didn't know what I was doing. I was learning very, very quickly on the job. But by year 3 or 4, we started to get the data. We started to find wins. And it was use the right word, very iterative process. It was just following the data, a lot of A/B testing, what worked. And we just did more of it. And, I wish I could say that when I was hired there 7 years before I left, that I went in with this amazing strategy that we were going to be the first, and major arts organization in the United States, let alone North America, to do 100% digital advertising. We killed all of the traditional advertising, which was blasphemy in the arts. It still is. To not be in the newspaper, to not be on a billboard, all those vanity plays in my mind, was that. And we became the first, and we were seeing huge double-digit increases for 4 years, $1 million increases for 3 of those. So it was all an iterative process. I didn't start out with this strategy. I developed it over 7 years, and it was follow the data, make a lot of mistakes, but don't keep doing them if they're not working. And when I had clear data that I could spend $1 on Facebook and turn it into 8 in some cases, why would you stop? And budgets aside, you just kind of have to discard your budget at that point. We were. Thankfully, my boss was in a place where he would let me. I'd go in every couple of months and be like, I think we need to spend another $100,000 on marketing, and here's where, and here's what I think it will do. And if the math made sense, and we would do it. And if I was right, we'd keep doing it. If I was wrong, we'd stop and pivot. So it really is iterative. Those small wins are so powerful, especially in a nonprofit where, big wins, they're hard. And they are hard. And I always say mathematically, 1% improvement is better than 10% improvement, ironically by 10%. You get one extra, iteration out of that, just simply from the compounding. And it's really simple math, but it's a really simple strategy, but it's hard to let go of the big, again, sexy stuff and go back to, great, I'm just going to follow, try to get an extra 10% more conversions this month. It's going to make a small difference on your website traffic, but it may make a big difference in what you're trying to get people to do.
Yeah, Todd, I knew that time would fly by in today's episode because you and I could geek out about all these things: marketing, advertising, business growth, marginal gains. But I want to squeeze 2 more questions in while we have you here, because I always love also talking entrepreneur to entrepreneur. And with that in mind, something that I so respect and really deeply appreciate about Ely Hub and the way that you serve so many nonprofits around this country, making a huge positive difference in the world, is how accessible your agency is to them, Todd. You are not charging exorbitant fees. You are very understanding of a simplistic approach to things allows you to pass that on to the clients that you serve. And that makes your agency's impact even more. You talk about compounding effects. It really amplifies all of those things that you can do and all the people you can serve. Talk to us about that intentional pricing strategy, because if people are listening to this thinking, Todd, I wish I could afford a Google Ads specialist like you, your pricing starts at, and obviously it can change, but I'm just reading from your website, starts at $125,000 or $125 a month and scales up from there. So Todd, talk to us about the intentionality and the strategy behind being sort of a volume business of serving so many more clients versus the high ticket that maybe charges my mishap of $125,000 instead of just $125 a month.
Well, if I could charge $125,000, I'd be doing this on my yacht. But we believe in transparency. I spent over 12 years in the nonprofit space. I was in the chair of marketing directors and chief marketing officers at several organizations. And I work with ASU Lodestar, which is a wonderful resource for nonprofits, their nonprofit center. I just always knew that there was this niche out there. And I built the pricing, which typically is around, our starting rate is typically around $149. We do have kind of a hyper local at that $125, but we charge $149 for a local nonprofit. And we basically define that as kind of the size of a county, a single U.S. county, maybe a second, depending on where they're at. We charge a little bit more. We charge $249 for statewide, which is an entire state or kind of a metro area like New York City, where you've got multi-states, but it's really a relatively compact area. And then we have nationwide pricing, for our national nonprofits, which we have several. And we charge $399 for them. $399 for them, and they typically get the higher amount. So we want to price it accordingly. But 1, we believed in transparency. 2, there's a lot of competition out there in this space, and there's a lot of really good people that are worth the money. But for a lot of nonprofits who just need to get as much out of the grant as possible, I wanted to price it as low as I could. And basically we came up with our pricing and kind of settled on it with, if it nothing else, the Google grant is really good at just getting the people who are already looking for you to your website. So for example, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, we've got a couple of those chapters. People get that name wrong all the time. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Big Sisters, Big Sisters, Big Sisters, Big Sisters, Big Brothers, all sorts of iterations that you would never guess. We price it at that point, so if nothing else, those people who are looking for you can find you really quickly. And that's more of a customer service thing. And anything above that. So when we get them donations, and we get them a lot of website, we get them new mentors and new kids that need mentors. That's all bonus. We want it priced as low as possible so that nonprofits are just getting value out of it more or less from day one. And then all the upside is on the nonprofit. I'm not going to charge more. Our pricing is very transparent. It's on our website. We limit any caps. We haven't even done any yet, but if we ever did, they're limited in the contract. I believe in making not the nonprofit. We designed our system to be as low cost and as completely off the plate of the nonprofit as possible. If they're comfortable with us and they trust our data, we want it to be set it and forget it, so they can spend their time on mission and cultivating those leads that we get them on their website through newsletter enrollments or low-level donations or first donations, things like that. So thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, we think it's important, and we want to be the right agency for the right person. I was privileged at all my previous jobs. I was able to spend $1,000 a month on a full service, amazing agency out of New York. And I would highly recommend them. I do recommend them, but a lot of nonprofits can't afford that. And so that's where we try to fill the gap.
Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you do that out of service, and of course the level of transparency that is all too rare to find in business. So huge kudos to you, Todd, and the way that your values show up in the way that your business serves other people. And then the final question that I always ask in these episodes, it's fun for me because you can take it in any direction that you want, and that is your one piece of advice, knowing that we're being listened to by thousands of entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs all over the world at all different stages of their business journey. What's that one thing that you want to impart on them and leave them with in today's episode?
Oh, such a good question. To me, I think the thing that has brought me the most success in my career is accountability. And I see it across the board, through extremely accountable folks to not extremely accountable folks. But it really comes down to, one, you got to be accountable to yourself. Are you honest with yourself? What works and what doesn't? I've been on this journey now for almost 3 years, and I started relatively late on the entrepreneur journey, but I own up to my mistakes, and we try to quickly pivot and not make them more. And certainly to clients, we're growing, we're new, we drop the ball from time to time, and I have to be accountable to them. And if my team makes a mistake, I'm the one who has to fall on that sword, and I do it readily and being transparent, and it's really served us well. We have a 92% client retention rate, and almost all of our clients that have left is because they were ready for something bigger. They're going on to a full service agency, or they found some more money, or they could get a better service that puts more things together. So we're really pleased by that number, and I think it served me well.
Yeah, Todd, honestly, I can't sing your praises enough here on the air. I'm really excited to put my money where my mouth is and send so many nonprofits that are in our ecosystem your way, because I'm so clear. I knew it before we even got on the air here together today, but your integrity, your values show up so much, not only in what you do, but how you do it. So huge kudos to you. Along those lines, Todd, for people who are looking to go deeper into the wonderful world of the Google Ad Grant and all the services that your agency offers, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Yeah, great. Easiest thing, if you have not applied for Google for Nonprofits, just go to Google for Nonprofits. Google for Nonprofits. The application is really simple. I promise it's the easiest grant you'll ever apply for. Once you get approved from that, you do have to activate your products. You also get free Google Workspace and some YouTube benefits. But make sure you activate each of those products if you're going to use them. The second one's the Google Ad Grant. If you already have the Google Ad Grant, you can log into your account and deploy that 3-campaign strategy, if nothing else. Build a dynamic campaign and a responsive campaign that kind of covers what you do in general. And then I would build a separate campaign on what's the number one thing you want people to do. And then lastly, I'll just say, there's a lot of resources around this, so if you are going to try to do it yourself, there's some great Udemy courses for, oftentimes under $20 that you can do if you're just trying to troubleshoot a particular problem. Obviously YouTube, like we all do. And then I had one final thought, and I might have just forgotten it. But
Todd, you've got to plug your link for us too.
Oh, sure. I'll do that right now. Thank you for the segue. If you get stuck at any point on the journey, because it can be quirky, don't hesitate to reach out to me or my team. We are at www.elihub.com. That's ELEEHUB. The word Ely comes from the word eleemosynary, which means charitable or philanthropic. So we just borrowed that root word to create our company. And all our information's on there, the strategy's on there. But yeah, if you get stuck and you get denied the Google grant or you can't get into it, we know most of the tricks to get you up and running at no obligation. We'd be happy to help you out. So my email, todd@elihub.com, and I'm pretty active on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, so listeners, you already know the drill. We're making it as easy as possible for you to find Todd and his business online. His business website is at elihub.com. You'll find that link down below no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode, so you can click right on through. We're also linking to his personal LinkedIn. You see how generous and transparent he is. This is probably the first guest ever that when I ask for his links, Todd just wants to continue being of service to you. So Todd, honestly, it's such a reflection of the type of person that you are, the type of entrepreneur that you are, and how much you're in service to others. So on behalf of myself and all of our listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Well, really appreciate it. It's been a great opportunity. Thanks, Brian.